Hello friends, today I am coming at you with my top 3, not like tips, but like instructions on how to lose fat and keep it off. With the new year, new me, gotta lose weight hype, it can be really easy to get caught up in a lot of weight loss strategies that are not very good weight loss strategies. So I wanted to emphasize 3 of the like main core principles for how to actually lose fat in a way where it will be healthy, it will be sustainable, and you will be able to keep off the fat. Because there's nothing more like soul crushing than being stuck in that endless yo-yo cycle of always thinking about weight loss. Like the goal should be to get to where you want to be and then never have to think about it again, rather than to lose the weight, put it all back on, and then start the process over and over and over and just always be constantly thinking about your body and about trying to lose fat, and always in that like very restrictive mindset. Like it's not a fun place to be. And life is meant to be lived, not meant to be about fat loss. Like the idea of going out and getting a burger and fries and a milkshake and maybe a drink or 2 with some friends shouldn't feel like impending doom because you know it's gonna ruin all of your progress. Like that should just sound like a fun time. So in this video, I'm about to talk quite a bit about workout programming, and I figured since I'm talking a lot about it, I want to give you guys access to programs that will actually help you implement all of the tips that I'm about to give you. So I just decided like right before I hit record for this video, I'm gonna do a flash sale on all of my ebooks. I recommend getting my ebook Brains and Gains because that is my like complete workout program that you can use like as a continuous workout program and cycle through and everything. It's the one that highlights all of the tips that I'm about to give you. But if you also want to get a discount on Project Comeback or Adaptogens 101, you can. And let's make the discount code FABFEB for Fabulous February. Can you tell I actually have not thought this through at all? It's fine. FABFEB is the discount code to get yourself 25% off of any of my ebooks. So I'll leave a link to those down in the description box below. Check them out. So without further ado, let's get into like the core principles, the instructions, the main pieces of information that I have for you for how to lose fat. So number 1 thing is prioritize consistency over intensity. Here's why. When your body is adapting, that means it is changing. When your body is not adapting, that means it's not changing. So we want our body to adapt. And if you're constantly changing what you're doing, whether it be constantly changing your workouts, constantly changing your diet, etc., your body can't adapt to anything because you're giving it so many different signals, it like doesn't have anything that it can actually hang on to and adapt to. You're just confusing it. And this idea, this myth, this really annoying thing that just kind of keeps sticking around in the fitness space, this idea of muscle confusion, really it just needs to die, or it needs to be more properly explained. And I'll kind of go into that in number 2, but basically, if you're trying to apply like muscle confusion and you're changing your workouts every single time you go into the gym, your body doesn't have anything to adapt to. It's probably gonna feel like you're doing a lot. It's going to feel very intense because every workout you're doing something new and you're forcing your body to respond to a new stimulus. But just because it feels super intense for your body doesn't necessarily mean that it's as productive as it could be. Consistency is necessary to promote adaptation. But where I see a lot of people really actually go wrong with this in practice is prioritizing the intensity over the consistency and always trying to like go all out, balls to the wall, like, or starve themselves with their diets, just do extreme things because they're very intense, but then there's no consistency because they're not sustainable. They're impossible to stick to. With exercise, it's going to be infinitely better to work out 3 days a week consistently, week after week after week, rather than try to push yourself to work out 5 to 6 days a week some weeks, and then maybe you do that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then the next week you only get 1 workout in, the next week you get none in because you're just burnt out and that schedule is completely unsustainable, so it feels really overwhelming and now you just don't want to go at all. Or when it comes to like actual physical intensity of your workouts, it's much better to put in 70% effort, leave the gym feeling good, feeling strong, feeling like you got a good workout in, but like you maybe could have done a little bit more, rather than try to push like 110% while you're in the gym, just go all out, and then the next day wake up super sore, super demotivated. You're not gonna be getting stronger when you're doing that because you're gonna be overtraining, so you're gonna be demotivated because you're not even seeing progress that way. And so maybe you go all out for like 2 weeks and then you stop because it's unsustainable. With nutrition, it's better to be consistent with something like the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you're eating well, you're sticking to whatever it is that you're trying to stick to, and then 20% of the time you kind of have whatever. If you can be consistent with that, that's gonna get you much better results than trying to be like 100% squeaky clean with your diet, like sticking perfectly to all of the little rules and whatever that you give for yourself, and then falling off that after 3 or 4 days because it's unsustainable and miserable, and then you binge for a couple days. Likewise, it's gonna be much better to be in a consistent, reasonably sized calorie deficit than it will be to try to like starve yourself for a couple days and then end up binging afterwards. So what this means for you, what the key takeaways should be for your fitness journey are that you should be picking easier workout programs, diets, etc. to follow, ones that you know, like you're confident that you can stick to it. It won't make you miserable. It will be sustainable, rather than picking the ones that are just like all out crazy, results in 30 days kind of thing. Stop chasing the fastest results possible because you won't be able to be consistent. You're always going to ultimately make faster progress if you pick the slow and steady process, rather the one that gets you really fast results but then dumps you back down at square one, because then you're just going up and down like this, never actually making any progress. Whereas the person who's just making slow and steady progress, it's a tortoise in the hare. It's a tortoise in the hare. Be the tortoise. Be consistent. And then just to loop back to muscle confusion, because I like touched on it and didn't finish what I wanted to say about it, because there's so much to say. Consistency within your workout. So not only like being able to be consistent with being able to go to the gym, like doing 3 days a week instead of trying to push yourself to do 5 to 6 days a week when that's not practical. Like you also want to be like, once you're doing consistently 3 days a week at 70% intensity, you want to be consistent with your workouts within that as well. So like week to week, your workouts should look basically the same. And this is so that you can apply progressive overload, which is how you get your body to adapt to the workout stimulus. I do have a whole video about applying progressive overload. I'll leave a link to that down in the description box below, but basically it just means adding load over time. So forcing your body to gradually adapt in small increments as you increase weight, increase reps, increase sets, etc. And it's basically really hard to apply progressive overload when you aren't being consistent with what you're doing in the first place, because then you're just doing a bunch of different random sporadic load all the time and you can't progress it. So you're gonna get much better, faster results if you do like full body resistance training 3 days a week, where the workouts are the exact same every single week, as opposed to, you know, 1 week maybe doing like full body resistance training, and then the next day doing like an hour of cardio, and then the next day doing like a Pilates class, and then the next week doing like kickboxing, then an hour of cardio, and then what other kind of workouts are there? But you get the point. You want your workouts to be super consistent week to week. Now, principle number 2 is to change things up, which I know sounds like the complete opposite of what I just said, but hear me out. So you do need consistency in order for your body to be able to grow and adapt. But there is an adaptation curve. So when you give your body a new stimulus, let's say you're in a 300 calorie deficit and you're resistance training 3 days a week in the hypertrophy range, your body is going to start to adapt like this, but then it's going to start to plateau. And it's when it starts to plateau that you need to change things so that you can start adapting again. Then eventually you'll plateau, and then you change things, you start to adapt again, and then you plateau. But you want to ride that adaptation curve kind of as long as possible. You don't want to be changing things like every 2 weeks, like, oh my God, gotta stay ahead of the curve. Like, no, like ride out the adaptation curve as long as possible, switch, like ideally right before you're gonna start to plateau. But, you know, as soon as you start to plateau, switch it up. So in practice, what this looks like with exercise is when you start a new program, whatever it may be, let's assume it's a well-programmed program, the first like 1 to 3 weeks is where your body like really starts taking off with the adaptation. It really recognizes like, okay, this is a new stimulus. We need to figure out what the heck is going on. And we need to adapt to it as quickly as possible so that we can do these things as efficiently as possible. And this is followed by an adaptation phase of about 4 to 8 weeks, where your body really kind of starts to settle in and learn how to adapt better to this new stimulus, and it becomes more efficient at whatever you're doing. So let's say you're lifting weights, lifting really heavy weights, your body is going to adapt by building more muscle so that you can lift heavier weights. And it's at about week 12 to 16 where your body really starts to kind of peak at its ability to adapt, and you will start to level off with the speed that you're adapting and eventually plateau. So what this means is you're gonna wanna change up your workout programming. So basically like the structure and goal of what you're training for every about 6 to 12 weeks. So what this would look like is every 6 to 12-ish weeks, you would cycle through a hypertrophy phase where you're lifting in the 8 to 12 rep range, lifting heavy, trying to build muscle. And then maybe you'll do 6 to 12 weeks of training for strength where you're lifting like heaviest weights possible, 2 to 5 reps, just trying to build like maximal strength. Then maybe you could do like an endurance phase where you're doing closer to like 15 to 20 reps of stuff. And then maybe a performance-based phase where you're doing more like ballistic activity and rotational activity and stuff that's just gonna like enhance physical performance. And then you just kind of like cycle through that over and over, and your body will keep like adapting and plateauing and adapting and plateauing and adapting and plateauing, and you make progress. And then when it comes to this principle applied to your diet, it's important to know that the human body is a homeostasis machine. It wants to drive you to maintain homeostasis, essentially maintain your current weight. And this is why we get metabolic adaptation. So when you eat in a calorie deficit, your body will slow down your metabolism to compensate for that calorie deficit. If you eat in a calorie surplus, your body will go through various adaptations to account for that surplus. So eventually, whether you're eating in a surplus or a deficit, you will plateau at a weight. If you've ever tried eating in like the standard 500 calorie deficit to lose fat, and it was working for like 12 weeks and then you just stopped losing weight and couldn't lose any more weight, this is why, because your metabolism just slowed down to adapt to it, and that 500 calorie deficit became your new maintenance calories, which is why reverse dieting is the best, because it digs you right back out of that hole. But too many videos on reverse dieting. We're not going there today. If I were to start eating 500 calories more every single day, I would start gaining weight. My body would also go through various processes to speed up my metabolism, and eventually I would plateau at a higher weight. I wouldn't just continually keep gaining weight forever and ever. Like, my metabolism would adapt. So likewise with the calorie deficit, weight loss is part of that adaptation, but there are other adaptations that slow your metabolism down to match your calorie deficit. Your metabolism is kind of very simplistically like a thermostat. You know, if it gets too hot, the air kicks on, brings the temperature back down. If it gets too cold, heat kicks on, brings the temperature back up. Keeps you in homeostasis. And studies show that if you are in a calorie deficit, your metabolism starts to adapt after about 2 to 8 weeks. It doesn't fully adapt after like 2 weeks. It's not like if you're eating in a 500 calorie deficit, your body's gonna slow your metabolism down that quickly. It doesn't happen like that, but after 2 weeks, your metabolism will slowly, incrementally start to slow down to match your calorie intake. This is why we implement Marissa's principle number 2 of change things up. And what this looks like for diet is every 2 to 8 weeks, take a 1 full week diet break where you eat at your original maintenance calories. I do have an entire video going into a lot more detail on this principle and how to apply it, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description box below. But basically, studies show that when you do take regular planned diet breaks, it not only increases how much fat you can lose in the total amount of time spent in a deficit, but also results in having a faster metabolism once the weight is lost compared to if you just did a continual calorie restriction. It results in more favorable body composition, so losing more of your weight from fat rather than muscle, so you end up at a lower total body fat percentage. And it also greatly reduces the likelihood of regaining weight once you've lost it. So basically with exercise, you're preventing plateauing by changing up your workout routine. With nutrition, you are preventing a plateau by just taking regular diet breaks. So day to day, you do still need consistency, but it's more the week to week, month to month bigger picture that you do need to be phasing your diet and your training. Principle, instruction, tip number 3, I don't really even know what to call these. The third thing that I wanted to tell you that I feel like not enough people talk about, but really kind of simplifies things, at least in my brain, is that fat loss should look like building muscle, except you're in a calorie deficit. Everything else should basically be the same. Now, to a lot of people, this idea might sound crazy, but just hear me out for a second. There is a difference between weight loss and fat loss. If you want to look leaner, you need to be losing fat. Because it's quite possible to lose, let's say you lose 30 pounds, and you're just focusing on weight loss. And maybe you're doing a lot of cardio, you're throwing in a couple juice cleanses, you're restricting your calories pretty severely, and you're doing, I don't know what else, the things that people think that they need to be doing to lose fat. It's easily possible that 15 pounds of that's gonna come from fat, 15 pounds of that's gonna come from muscle, and your body composition isn't gonna change at all. You're gonna look a little bit smaller, but you're gonna look just as fat. You're gonna be really frustrated and confused as to why nothing seems to be working because the scale's going down, but you basically look the same. Or, even worse, you only lose 10 pounds of fat and 20 pounds of muscle, and you end up at a higher body fat percentage than you were at when you started. So yes, you lost weight on the scale, but you got fatter because you lost so much muscle in the process of trying to lose weight. The more common and I guess well-known widespread weight loss strategies out there, particularly the ones that are like lose X number of pounds in 30 days, or like the ones that try to get your results really quickly, those are the ones that are more likely to make you lose significantly more muscle mass and put you in danger of actually getting fatter while losing weight. But also those strategies set you up to have a very slow metabolism, and also you lost the weight in a very unsustainable way. So not only are you smaller and maybe even at a higher body fat percentage, but then you're very likely to gain a ton of fat back afterwards. Even if, yes, maybe you do decrease your body fat percentage a little bit with those weight loss strategies, chances are once you rebound and gain the weight back, you're gonna end up at a higher body fat percentage than you started, because you've lost muscle in the process of losing weight. And then when you regain weight, you're not just gonna regain all the muscle that you lost, you're mostly gonna regain it in fat. This is why yo-yo dieting cycles like this, every time it gets harder and harder and harder to get to where you wanna be, because you're actually just paring back muscle and replacing it with fat, and so you're increasing your body fat percentage like every time. Also, there's a lot of biological mechanisms that make it harder to lose fat every time you lose fat, but we'll save that for another video. So basically, if you want to make sure that you're really going to look leaner when you are done actively trying to lose fat, you need to be focusing on fat loss, not weight loss. And in order to do this, you need to be doing everything that you would need to do to build muscle. Because what you do to build muscle when in a surplus is going to be what maintains the most amount of muscle in a calorie deficit. Because when you're in a calorie deficit, that's inherently catabolic, which means you are breaking down tissue in your body. Your body needs to be in a catabolic state to burn body fat. But catabolism also is what breaks down muscle. So you're already putting your body in a position where it's going to want to start to pare back muscle. So you need to be really careful in that state, and you need to be sending it like the loudest signal possible that it needs to hold on to as much muscle as it can, because the muscle is still very important for your body's survival. And the way you send it these signals is to basically treat your body like you're trying to build muscle. So you need to ditch the juice cleanses, the 30-day cleanses, the other 30-day challenges, the doing cardio 7 hours a week. Like, none of those are advantageous to a more favorable long-term body composition. So this is what this means this should look like when it comes to your fat loss journey. For exercise, train as if you're trying to build muscle. Lift heavy, ideally mostly in the like 1 to 12-ish, maybe 15 rep range, 3 to 6 sets. Make sure you're applying progressive overload. It is harder in a deficit because you don't have as much fuel, you don't have as many calories to like turn into strength and turn into muscle, but you still can. When I started going through my most recent fat loss journey like 2 years ago, I was obviously actively eating in a calorie deficit, and it got into my head, and when I went into the gym, I was like, oh, I feel so weak, like I can't apply progressive overload, I'm just gonna aim for maintenance. And then my coach, bless her heart, Lauren, I'll leave a link to her down in the description box below, she was like, it's literally in your head, like you can still apply progressive overload, you're not in that much of a deficit. And I was like, ugh. So I went back to the gym, and I was like, I am strong, and then I could apply progressive overload. So it was literally all in my head. You can still apply progressive overload in a deficit. You won't be able to apply it as fast, but you can still do it. And also for exercise, this means minimal to no cardio. I personally recommend not doing any cardio if you're trying to lose fat, unless you like love cardio, really want to do it. Like if you do it for your mental health, like please by all means keep doing it. But I have a whole video, which I'll leave a link down in the description box below, because I feel like before you hate on me, just go watch that video and hate on me in those comments if you watch the whole video and you still have something to say about it. But cardio is not necessary for fat loss. Cardio can be disadvantageous for long-term fat loss, because it just puts you further into that catabolic state where you're breaking down tissue, and you don't want to be breaking down muscle while you're trying to lose fat. So basically, doing all of these things for exercise is going to help you maintain as much muscle as possible, which is also going to help you maintain the highest metabolism possible as you lose fat, which, as we just talked about, your metabolism does try to slow down as you are losing weight, but the more muscle you can maintain, the higher your metabolism will stay, which means it's going to be easier to burn fat and also to keep the fat off once you lose it. When it comes to diet, the principles that you want to take from trying to build muscle and apply to trying to lose fat are a high protein diet, not like excessively high protein, just like 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of goal body weight, not total body weight. Also, carbs, really helpful. They are not your enemy when it comes to fat loss. Carbs are the best source of energy for resistance training, which is, like I said, ideally the kind of working out you will be doing while you are trying to lose fat. So the more carbs you have, the better your workouts are gonna be, the more you're going to be able to get out of your workouts. So like if you can get, 100% out of your workout because you're eating as many carbs as you can within your calorie deficit, that's gonna be a lot better than only getting in like 70% out of your workout because you're scared of carbs, so you're leaning more on protein and fat, but you don't actually have enough fuel to get a better workout in. But also carbs are extremely important for muscle recovery post-workout. And the better your muscles can repair, the more muscle you're going to be able to maintain while in a calorie deficit. Fat as a macronutrient is a lot less helpful for building muscle and also for fat loss. You need to be having some amount of fat. Like if you have no fat, you will die. Please eat fat. But it's just less directly involved in the mechanisms in the body that contribute to building muscle and burning fat. So fat can be minimized. I will say, however, that when in a calorie deficit, some people do find it easier to maintain that calorie deficit if they bump up the fat and decrease the carbs a little, because fat can be a lot more satiating. So feel free to play around with the macros, see what works for you. Just don't shy away from adding more carbs because you think they're gonna make you gain fat. From there, once you're eating enough protein and not being afraid of carbs, you just need to be in a calorie deficit. People often think that they need some like crazy extreme workout program or diet or like some shiny new thing in order to lose weight efficiently and effectively, but this could not be farther from the truth. In reality, all you really need to do is lift heavy, prioritize protein, eat in a calorie deficit, be consistent week to week, and then phase your training and take diet breaks. And I think we often get led into thinking we need some crazy extreme diet or workout program or whatever, because doing what I just said is not gonna get you the fastest results. You may be waiting around for 3, 4, 5 weeks to actually start seeing progress, which when you're doing everything right feels like a really long time. It can be really frustrating to go 5 weeks and feel like nothing is changing. And you assume that because nothing has changed in 5 weeks that you're doing something wrong, and so you switch to a workout program that's like insane, and yeah, you lose 5 pounds in a month and you're like, oh, this is the answer. Then you end up falling off the workout program, regaining the weight, but always going back to that level of intensity because that's what got you the results the first time. But here's a big tip. If the results are not sustainable after doing what you did to get there, then the thing that you did to get there is in itself a failure. Not like you are a failure, just like it is a bad program or diet, something that is not actually going to get you the results that you want long-term. Long-term progress does take a lot more time, but think of it this way. Would you rather spend 1 year doing what I just said, getting slow, steady progress, and then reaching your goal after an entire year, but then never having to think about fat loss again? Hearing your friend call you and say, hey, do you want to go get burgers and fries and milkshakes and maybe we'll go to the bar afterwards? You can be excited about that because you won't be worried about gaining the weight back. You will have all of the food freedom for like the rest of your life and not have to think about fat loss ever again. Or would you rather, lose all the weight in 3 months, then gain it back 3 months later, and then lose all the weight in 3 months, and then gain it back 3 months later, and have that happen for years and years and years? I know some of you watching this have been going through that for years and years and years. This is how you stop that, is you stop chasing fast results and you go for long-term sustainable results. Do things the right way, not the fast way. So I recommend giving this a try, being patient. If you've already tried 1 or 2 things this year so far to lose weight and have fallen off the wagon already, stop that cycle before it gets worse and dive into this. Like I said, Brains and Gains, my workout program that applies all of the workout principles that I just talked about in this video, is on sale, 25% off with the code, what did I say it was? FAB? That's such a weird discount. It is what it is. I hope this video will be helpful for some of you. If you do have any questions, comments whatsoever, please feel free to leave them down in the description box below. If you want to see more videos from me all about health and fitness, you can check them out over here. To see future videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little notification bell so you get notified when I post a video, and I will see you very soon. Bye!